You, my friend, might be asking yourself, which camera is best for you, the X100V or the X-E4? I've been asked by many people now on all my YouTube channels which one of these two cameras is the best, and I'm going to answer that question in this video. Let's first tackle the similarities. We're gonna find the same 26 megapixel CMOS X-Trans4 sensor, the same as we find on the X-T4, X Pro 3, XS10, etc. They both have an ISO ranging from 160 to 12,800. They're both very portable. They're two cameras that you can easily put in a purse, in a bag, and take with you everywhere. They both have the same 4K recording options. None of them has weather resistance or IBIS. They both have a tilting screen. The X-E4 has a slightly better tilting screen. I'll talk more about this later. They have the same battery. And they both have one memory card slot. Now that the similarities are out of the way, let's see what these cameras have to offer. Let's start with the X-E4. It is 114 grams lighter. It has the possibility to interchange lenses, and that is, in my opinion, the biggest difference between these two cameras. And that is the reason why I would go for the X-E4 rather than the X100V personally. Because obviously you could go with an XT camera, which becomes a little bit bulkier, or you could go with an X Pro camera, etc. But the fact that you have such a small body and you can interchange lenses, you can either put a pancake lens like this 27mm, or you could put a 56mm, or you could go with a 10 to 24mm. It's gonna be a little bit front heavy, but at least you can change the focal length, which means you can use this camera for studio work, you can use it for real estate work, you can use it for photo shoots, you can use it for pretty much anything, landscaping, street photography, anything. And that is a big, big advantage. In terms of size, not a huge difference. It is a little bit different, especially the fact that it is 7mm less wide, and that is something you can see right here. I have small hands and I can easily fit it in my hands, versus the V that is a little bit harder to take like this. So you can see here, not a huge difference. Once again, they're very similar. There are 2mm in height, so that again, you're not gonna see any difference. And the other big difference is the fact that the X-E4 is about 2 centimeters less thick. But that obviously is because you have a lens on the X100V. So they're very similar in terms of size. Another thing to consider is that the V has a little bump here. It's very tiny. You can add an attachment, but at least you have something, a little grip. Versus the X-E4 that doesn't have a grip, and you have to add the actual grip so you can hold this in your hands firmly, because without it, it becomes a little brick and it's very slippery. I have small hands, so for me it's not a big deal, but if you like to have a good grip on your camera, this is not going to work by itself. The X-E4 has a turn-up bleach film simulation if it's a film simulation you like. It has it, versus the X100V that doesn't. The tilting screen is better. In fact, you can tilt it the same way as the 100V, but you can also go up like this for vlogging. As I said in my X-E4 video, this can be a pain in the butt if you want to plug an external microphone, because the hot shoe mount on top gets covered, so you can't really use it, which means you would have to either put externally or put a cage, which makes it bulkier. All right, let's now talk about the pros of the X100V. It has a 4-stop neutral density filter, an ND filter, included in the box, so you don't need to add it. I usually use a 3-stop ND or a 6-stop ND on my Nisi filter kit, so this falls pretty much in between these two, and it is great. Like if you want to do some long exposure, you can do that, or if you want to shoot when it's bright outside and you want to reduce a little bit the light, or even for filming and you want to reduce a little bit the light that's coming in the lens, you can do so thanks to this ND filter. It has a very compact size. If you take into account the fact that it has a 23mm lens included in the box, in the package. This thing is very slim profile. It can go pretty much anywhere, and that is one thing I really liked about the X100 series. I used to own the X100F as well as the T, and they're very compact, and you can really bring them anywhere, and there's no hassle in terms of focal length because it's already included. It has an OVF and EVF hybrid shooting mode. That is great because you're gonna save battery power if you don't use the EVF and you go in hybrid mode. That's one thing that is great. And the other thing is that it works a little bit like the Leica M series, where it's very close to a rangefinder type of camera, where you can see the framing in the little window here, and you can see who and what's gonna come in the frame when you're doing street photography. The other thing is that you can still frame your shot even if the camera is off, and you can see a little bit how the outcome is going to be. And that is something that only the X100 and the X Pro series have, and it's a big plus, and I honestly really like that about these camera. It comes with a leaf shutter. Leaf shutter is a shutter that is in the lens, and the fact that this lens is not removable allowed them to do so. That is something extremely good that we normally find in medium format cameras and lenses, and it is good because it allows you to do fast shutter sync with your flash, so you can shoot at any sync speed, and you're not going to have the limitation that you find here. For example, on the X-T3 is 1/250th of a second, on the X-E4 is 180 of a second, and on this one there's no limitation. In fact, I want to show you how it performs. We're going to test with an AD400 Pro and an AD300 Pro by Godox the trigger, and let's see at 160 ISO, 1000th of a second, and f4. Here we go. There, perfectly exposed. And I didn't go in high-speed sync. The other thing that is great about the leaf shutter is the fact that it's nearly silent. So if you have to take photos in a church, or have to take photos at a moment that you need total silence, this camera is going to be good for you. So who is the X-E4 for? It is for someone that wants to have a small compact camera. In fact, this is the most compact and the smallest camera of the lineup. It is for street photographers, for studio setup. So if you want to go and shoot in studio, you can totally do this. So don't be fooled by the size. It is going to be a little bit front heavy, but you will be able to shoot in studio with this camera with any lens. You could take the 56, you could take the 33, the 35, the 50. You have plenty of choices, and this camera is going to be able to handle it. It could be used as a secondary camera. I say a secondary camera because it has only one slot for the SD card, and that is a bit of a problem, for example, for a wedding, or when I go to do a professional shoot where I need to make sure that those files don't get lost, and you never know what could happen with your SD card, so it's always good to go in backup mode as found on the XT series and the X Pro series. And you could use this camera for reportage style of shooting. If you want to shoot something a little bit more candid, a little bit more discreet, you could use this even for everyday life, honestly, with this little small pancake 27mm that I don't like that much. I talked about it in my X-E4 review video, but you can still use it for daylight and for everyday usage. It is, I think, a good choice. And now, who is this X100V camera for? This camera is great for street photography. It is probably the king, or the queen, I don't know how you want to call it, of street photography. This camera is great when you want to be discreet, silent, when you don't want to look obnoxious. You can really go and take your photos, and you will probably not even be noticed because it looks a little bit analog, a little bit retro. It looks great. It is also great for reportage style. In fact, I shot the birth of my son with the X100F, the 4th generation of this camera, and here's a photo sample, and you can see that I could shoot great moments such as this one without a problem. It would be good for a wedding because of its discretion, because of its size. If you're someone like me that likes to shoot without flash at weddings and likes to be very discreet and unobtrusive and almost like a guest, and you want to be able to just go around, take your photos, then this camera is great. One thing that I noticed is in low light, it struggles a little bit. This lens struggles a little bit. So I stopped using it and I went with my X-T3 instead. It is also great for everyday. So if you look at the points that I listed for both of these cameras, really most of the points are valid for both. It is really a matter of, do you want to be able to interchange lenses? Do you need that ND filter? And is that EVF OVF hybrid system important to you? Otherwise, I think that the two cameras are very much the same, other than those points, and that will be what will determine which camera is the best for you. I hope I answered all your questions in this video. If you have any other question for me, hit me up in the comment section below, and I will see you, like always, in my next video. Subscribe if you didn't do it yet. Cheers.